This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
You've seen and read my 3 Pillars ebook, and now I'm proud to announce my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship, and it's now out and ready for reading. This new book of mine is a full-length version of the teachings of the 3 Pillars, and in it I show you how to walk in the integrity of eternal universal laws, in step with the law of attraction to consistently create the life you desire. Now, if you've ever wondered just why you can't consistently manifest all the good, loving, abundant, healthy, and happy things you desire, my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, will reveal the key in how to do just that. Plus, help you build a rock-solid personal foundation that will stand strong for the ages. Get your copy today. My new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship by Carl Gruber. Available now in ebook and paperback on Amazon.com. It's time for another awesome episode of the show, World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment. Now in its 5th year of bringing you guests, experts, and icons of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. I'm your host, Carl Gruber. Now, before we check in with our guests, please make sure to click the link below in the show notes to grab your copy of my latest book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship. Now available as an ebook or paperback, and soon as an audiobook. Well, Julia Marie is our guest today, here with her stories of how a series of spiritually transformative events changed everything in her life. She tells the story of her awakening and how she learned to live guided by the voice within in her new book, Signals from My Soul, a Spiritual Memoir of Awakening. Julia Marie is a gifted trans-dimensional healer, intuitive medium, and experienced spiritual teacher. She founded the Academy for the Intuitive Arts in 1997, and the courses and coaching help sensitive women and men as they take the next step to unlocking their spiritual potential. Plus, she has her own podcast called Evolving Humans. I love having another podcast around here. All right, with that, hey, welcome to the show, Julia. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for the lovely introduction. I can't wait to see where we're going today.
You never know on this show, but
Yep.
like I said, I like to laugh and enjoy myself, but dive deep into as what you do, and I've been doing my research on you, and I see that you have a degree in psychology. You're a Reiki energy master, a shaman, a medium. You're certified in Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis technique, and an author. But you had a career in the U.S. Air Force, and you've even had a job driving heavy equipment. I like that. Then you had a series of what you called spiritually transformative events that changed everything. What triggered that?
I can't tell you what triggered it, other than to say my soul was telling me it was time to wake up. I had a plan for my life, active duty military, and thanks to the military, I was able to complete my degree in psychology and also a law degree. I was going to be an attorney. I was going to speak for people who had no voices. But at the time I got that urging to speak for people who had no voices, I didn't know I didn't need a law degree because I was still asleep. So it was the trigger was a slow awakening, like the breaking of the sun And yet, when I wasn't paying too much attention, I believe that's when they brought out, when I say they, I mean my unseen, we all have unseen companions, and they brought out the spiritual 2x4 and said, wake up. And that's when I had the spiritually transformative experiences. Now, at the time, they didn't have a name for what happened to me. There were not books for me to go read. There wasn't an internet to go research. So I was pretty lost and confused. And all I had was this invisible voice to interrogate. So I used my law training to question my experiences, and there was always coherence in all of the responses. So the trigger would be, it was time. Short answer. Yeah.
Well, that's I find that interesting because myself, I can't say I've necessarily had any spiritually transformative experiences like you, but for me, I think I told you earlier before we came on, I'm a dedicated student of A Course in Miracles all the way since 2004. For me, we talk about epiphanies, and most of the time we think of epiphanies as blam, this bolt of lightning. But I'm like you too. It's been a long, slow, unfolding epiphany, of awakening, and it's kind of beautiful.
Well, I feel like for me, there's 3 levels. We're asleep, which is where most of us live our lives, frankly. We're focused on consumption. And so we don't pay too much attention to the non-physical aspects of our world. Then somehow we have some sort of a wake-up call. Then we're awake. That's not the end of it. For me, it then becomes a path of expanding awareness. And the more our awareness expands, the more connected we are all the time to the more subtle dimensions.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is absolutely true. I think what I have learned is now I I hear when excuse me, my spirit guides are talking to me. And it's not like I hear words, it's more like somebody tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, go do that.
Sure. It's an impression. That's what I like to call them. We're being impressed to do something, that little push. And mostly, if you really pay attention, you'll probably notice it's a physical sensation you have in your body, not necessarily a thought in your mind. So I always tell people your strongest spiritual sensor is going to be your physical sensations in your body. And just paying more attention to those is going to increase your awareness.
And that's great. That's good advice there too. And I think again, just going back to listening to your beautiful, mighty, unseen companions that are with each of us, I found in daily things, just walking around my place here, and maybe I forgot to pick something up. All of a sudden, I just, hey, you forgot, go get that. And I realized finally, after all these years, it's not me. I'm being guided every step of the way, and I love it. And I don't. Sometimes I kick myself when I don't listen, because we end up doing, something that wasn't a positive. But yeah, I love how you do that. But I also too, I just heard a little audio on your website a little while ago that when you were younger, you heard and knew things that you didn't until later on, when they were kind of beaten out of you. As a youngster, you had the intuitive and psychic gifts, and then they left you for a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they were beaten out of me, but I would say, just based on the family circumstances I had, growing up in a household where if you couldn't see it, hear it, feel it, taste it, or touch it, it wasn't real, that would lend itself to, okay, let me dampen this hypersensitivity, because I'm living in a house with 5 rowdy boys and a crying baby sister. So there were 7 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, so being open to the subtle frequencies could actually be painful. So it was much easier. It was a matter of survival. Dream work in my 50s taught me that it was probably just me tamping things down in order to survive. So, yeah.
I think most of us actually have that situation, where most of the world. I mean, there's almost 8 billion people on the planet, as I understand it, and most of us are caught in the 3D world of what you said. If you can't see it, taste it, smell it,
Hmm.
then it's not real. And that's why you and I are here, and what you do. Another thing I'm curious about, I understand that you have a different take on so-called spiritual gifts, where you don't think they're exactly gifts. What are they then?
Well, in in my world, we're all wired the same. So I would call them more a skill set that's either developed or not.
Hmm.
So in the same way that we all can probably plink on the piano and play chopsticks, if we practice that skill, we can play Chopin. So a gift is something that is given from somewhere to someone, but I believe we're all created, no pun intended, equal. Therefore, we all have the same wiring. We all have the same capacity to access our higher wisdom. Just some of us work harder to make that connection.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and it's kind of interesting because sometimes I feel like I have a brick wall, or instead of just a smoky veil in between there and the ethereal, but that's kind of encouraging that we can work on it and make that brick wall or that veil just go away and
Baby steps,
touch. Yeah. Wow.
just baby steps, a little at a time. I always say, dream up some kind of personal experiment you want to do. It doesn't matter whether you're going to guess who's going to call you next on the phone, guess. You're going to be quiet and tune in and see if someone's face or phone number comes to mind, and then see if that's your next phone call. All of that data collection builds your confidence and strengthens your skill set.
And
Yeah,
you and I both know that everybody has had experiences of being intuitive or empathetic, and that's a good
exactly.
start right there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's my point. We all have it. It's innate. Those are inborn traits. They are not gifts bestowed upon only special people.
Mhm.
I was just like everybody else before my STEs, and I'm just like everybody else after. I just made different choices. That's all. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, really, it's a birthright, not necessarily
exactly.
bestowed upon us. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what was your very first experience like connecting with and communicating with beings from the other side of the veil? Were you afraid, or were you enthralled, or what?
The first thing that happened was spontaneous activation of what I later found out was healing. That was the first thing that happened. My hands got hot. I had round red circles appear on my body where I later found out chakras were. I believe I had a Kundalini awakening because I had a red stripe up my back that took months to get all the way from the bottom to the top.
Oh,
And then in the evenings, I was joined by invisible people that showed up and started having conversations with me. And being practical and pragmatic, I tested them because I thought it was quote unquote just my imagination. But turns out they were giving me valuable information. And as I said before, over time, the subsequent information that I was given was always coherent. And I explain all this in the book. The first chapter is all about the awakening and the principles they gave me. And they told me, live your life according to these principles. You won't need a human teacher and you can achieve your own enlightenment. Now, I didn't know it at the time that what they were giving me were basically the perennial wisdoms, but I later found out that most of them are literally the perennial wisdoms. As above, so below, that kind of thing. It was those kind of principles.
yeah, universal principles.
Exactly, that apply to everyone.
Yeah. So invisible people showed up. Were you like sitting in your living room and you sensed that they were here? Could you hear them like verbally?
Um, I would say, now that I understand, now from a teacher's perspective, if I assess what was going on with me, I'm going to say I was highly clairvoyant, most strongly clairvoyant. So I was seeing them in my mind's eye, and I was probably claircognizant because the ideas would drop in my brain, like thoughts in my head. It wasn't necessarily a voice per se. Yeah. So I would say it was through clairvoyance and probably claircognizance, just knowing. And if somebody said, well, how do you know that? I wouldn't be able to explain to them how I knew it.
Right. And it could be different for everybody. As we know,
Yeah.
the teachers will come to you in the right way, in the right time, and communicate with you that you're comfortable with and can understand. I know one of the greatest teachers of A Course in Miracles that I've had on my show 3 times, Gary Renard. He actually had his 2 ascended masters appear to him as humans on his couch. They just bam showed up, and they still appear to him after I think 27 years. So yeah, so that was the right way and the right time for him. But I would like to ask this, because I did see this on your site talking about if you ever had a negative experience with communicating with a spirit.
The one time I had a less than positive experience was more in the mediumship realm after my mediumship woke up, and I didn't know at the time what I was doing. I didn't know I could put boundaries on things. I didn't know I could say what is okay and what is not okay. And I had an unpleasant experience, and what that taught me was I need to go get some training. So
Mm.
that's where I had my first human teacher, was with in the mediumship department, but that was 15, almost 20 years into my journey, though. About 15. Yeah.
You know, that's interesting. Just a few episodes ago, I had a colleague of mine, Dr. Maria Rothenberger, on, and she's a spirit baby medium, and she communicates with spirit babies that are past or about to come to Earth. And she has told me that, I think she even talked about this on our show, that when she goes into her meditation, getting ready to do this, that she's actually had beings come in, being imposter babies, trying to trick her, and then she realizes them, and so I'm not paying attention. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's where the training comes in. You know what the parameters are and what to look for. Yeah, that's really curious.
Well, and I also fall back on one of the principles they told me, and that is intent is everything. So whenever I'm working with spirit, I state my intention very clearly before I begin. So I haven't had issues with what I would call deceptive beings, or I've not had that experience. Just that one time. So
Power of intention. I love it. It
yeah,
is.
intent is everything. That's the first principle they gave me.
Yeah. Have you ever read Lynn McTaggart's book, The Power of Intention? It's great. Oh yeah.
No.
Oh, it's beautiful. You should look that up. I'll send you a link to that. But
Okay.
no, I would like to find out more about the spontaneous activation of your ability to heal. I mean, you just mentioned that. Was it in a situation where you actually were healing something or someone?
No, I didn't know at the time what it was. I found myself, if I was around someone who didn't feel well, I didn't know it at the time, but my hands would turn on. And in the beginning, I had to take the jewelry on my hands off because my fingers would swell really quickly and then my rings would get stuck. So for a while, I quit wearing rings because the vibration of my body was much lower than the frequency of the healing energy. And when I asked Spirit, how come my fingers are swelling up? They said, because there's a disparity in the frequencies between where your body's vibrating and the energy is. So, I mean, I can wear rings now if I choose, but at the time I couldn't. So how did I know it was healing? It took me a while to connect the spontaneous heat in my hands and flush of energy in my body with someone not feeling well. And I ended up in a little spiritualist church, and there's a whole experience that happened then, and that's when I realized, oh, this is what this is for. This is healing energy. People started asking me what kind of healing you do. It didn't have a name.
Yeah.
So that's when I went and got the Reiki mastership. So I could say I was a Reiki master.
I love that. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say my hands turned on.
Yeah,
That's great because
they
and
still do. Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Well, and that makes sense because the energy is flowing from your extremities into that which you're healing.
Yes. Yep.
Wow. Wow. That is very cool. Um, well, again, spirituality is one of the key topics here in this show. And what's your? Because I like to find this out for my guests. What's your definition of spirituality, and what role does it play in your life?
Oh, that's pretty tough. Spirituality is not a religion. I would say that for me personally, spirituality simply is an understanding that there is something of myself and outside of myself that is greater than the little self that I am, and that I am both a part of and an instrument for that spirit. So that's what I would say my definition is. It doesn't have any form, neither does my belief system have any form, other than people can call it whatever they choose, whatever they're most comfortable with. The universe will rearrange itself to fit whatever our picture of reality is when it comes to spirit.
Hmm.
So
I
I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, I mean you answered it from
my
how,
perspective, yeah.
and that's what I was after.
Yep.
I think that probably most people, as they grow older, they start to say, you know what, and I'm a prime example of this. Hey, there's got to be something better than this. I hardly ever watch television. My TV is not even hooked up. However, I do see everything going on in the world, and all you have to do is watch the news and say, turn it off and say, there has got to be something better than this. And if you at least do a modicum of research, you're going to find it. Just a few years ago now, there's thousands of podcasts like this with this same topic, and so all you have to do is go on YouTube and search out, watch my show or your show, and you can find out. You can find out there really is something better than this, and thanks to people like you, you're really helping people understand that.
We each have a message to give, and our message will be heard by people who resonate with how we express it. But it's all the same. It's the same message. And that is that there's more to life than what we can perceive with our physical senses.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, many of my guests, I've had channels on here. I've had galactic beings from different star systems being channeled through here, and on, spiritual teachers, and they all say that human race is right now going through a huge transformation from the 3D to the 5D. And a lot of people go, oh yeah, right, sure, monkeys are going to fly out of my butt, but if you just look at it, you'll start to feel and understand the light is shining brighter than ever.
Change is upon us. I feel like where we might get caught up is when we think we can figure out what that change looks like and how it's going to come to pass. That's not for us to understand, personal opinion only. So I can't tell you how it's going to happen, but I do know that we're moving through a transition, collectively.
Yeah, and I think even energetically, we can feel it. We can all feel it, even if you're really not tapped into it. Something's changing. So, I'm doing my research on you. I see that you are the originator of something called restorative energy technique, which is a 5D trans-dimensional energy healing technique. That's a lot of words, but can you explain that?
Yes. So whatever it was that I was plugged into 30 plus years ago that was spontaneously activated, it took me 20 years. Spirit kept telling me, attune other people to this. And I said, well, I believe that when you slap a label on something, you limit how it can express into this dimension. So I was reticent to give it a name. So I said, you give me a name that sounds like something that will meet the requirements of a person's logical mind, and I will begin to attune people to this energy. And within 30 minutes, restorative energy technique, which frankly is a name that really doesn't have parameters on it. Restore means to put back in its original state. Energy is what flows to do that, and the technique is the method by which the restoration takes place. I believe it is 5D. I've done some personal experimentation with some of my longtime students who've been attuned to Reiki through me, and I attuned them to RET through me, and they say it's like Reiki on steroids. So I personally believe it's a new matrix. I'm a skeptic. Let's get that straight. Fundamentally, I do look for proof, validation, verification for pretty much everything I experience or am asked to do. So it's a 5D transmission, I believe, that's a pure energy matrix. And I do know that I'm capable of attuning people to it because I've done it successfully more than once with classes of people, small classes, but small groups. Yeah.
I like that term restorative to what we are originally be. And of course, the understanding is restored to our original self, our original higher self, which is one with all that is with our source. And
your original blueprint. That's what I say. Your original blueprint. Yep.
Yeah, pure energy and light. And that's the ultimate goal of enlightenment. And the moment that happens, Lord knows when all 8 billion people awaken, that's the true moment of enlightenment.
Well, as the soul journeys over its lifetime and incarnates, it experiences things that causes it maybe to forget part of who it is. And that's what's being restored through the process. Only at the human level, we do not intend anything. We simply are the energy delivery system. The energy is intelligent. It knows what to do. It just needs a vehicle through which to flow.
And that's why your hands turn on.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know, you have some amazing certifications and you've studied so many different things. I would like to find out more about your involvement with Dolores Cannon's QHHT, which is quantum healing
hypnosis technique.
Yeah, and I've had a couple guests on, Holly Duckworth and Tracy Mahan, who are both certified in QHHT. How did come about that you got involved with that?
Well, when Dolores first started doing conferences, I was one of the first vendors at her first conference. So, yeah, there were half a dozen of us that all felt we needed to be at this thing. And that conference later grew into something pretty large scale in Northwest Arkansas. But she also, around that same time, I think a few years after that, started teaching QHHT. So again, I was in one of her first classes for level 1 and level 2. And then subsequently also took a week's in residence training with a different teacher in order to feel comfortable with doing past life regression. So, I mean, it's a fascinating technique and it has merit. But it's not the only way for people to understand more about themselves. Let's just put it that way.
When I interviewed Holly Duckworth and Tracy Mahan separately in different shows,
sure,
they said that a session one-on-one with a person takes several hours.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, you have to connect. You connect the person to their higher self and their guides, and it sounds like an amazing process. Probably you're probably pretty worn out, and so is your client by the end of that session.
Well, there's a lot of how I learned it was to brief the person first. You ask them you have them come with questions that they would want to ask their higher wisdom. Okay. And in the process of the regression itself, they go to the relevant past life. So you move them through the past life or lifetimes. Then the after the regression is when you then open the floor up to their higher wisdom and speak directly with their higher wisdom and ask the questions that they brought to you. So I don't know the whole, maybe the training has changed since it was pretty straightforward when I took the class. We didn't connect to their guides or any of that, just mainly to what people would call their higher self.
And when you do that, is the person you're working with in that session, are they actually in a state of hypnosis?
Oh, yes. And that's, I believe, why what Dolores did would work, because you bring them down, you alter their brain waves, you run them through a past life, so that takes them really out of their current lifetime, and then you access their higher wisdom from a place of expanded infinity. Yeah, you couldn't just lay someone down and say, okay, we're going to connect you up to your higher wisdom and you're going to spout everything you need to know. So I believe that the regression itself is a very good midway step in order to reach the end goal.
Yeah, well, I find that fascinating. I actually would love to undergo that at some point myself. But, you're talking about past life regressions. I've had a few guests on my show that are experts on the Akashic records, which my understanding, it's a library and a record of all the lives and experiences that we each have lived. Understanding this, can you explain how our past and future lives can affect our current life that we're living?
When I do a past life reading for people, the first thing I do is draw a diagram that has a horizontal line, and I mark it time. And then I put an X where they are. And then any lifetime before this one is past, in quotes, any lifetime after this one on the timeline is future. But from the perspective of the soul, which I then draw above the horizontal line with rays coming down to each one of the marks on the timeline, it's all one life. Mm-hmm. So the soul is living all of those incarnations simultaneously. As a soul, I'm going to set up certain circumstances in this incarnation where I am currently aware that are going to be echoes of maybe themes or issues or gifts or talents or whatever that I need to access for this lifetime. As I address and improve them, I also affect those other lifetimes. So any work done here also changes all of those other ones. And when we start thinking about those possibilities, it can give you a headache, but that's what I believe the soul does.
And your description too is beautiful in that it really demonstrates that in true reality, time does not exist.
It does. It only exists for us here at this level. Indeed. From the perspective of the soul, which is infinite,
yes,
there is no time. It's a timeless being. It's a timeless state of existence.
Which is interesting. For example, my recent guest Brad Johnson, his galactic brother that he channels is actually from his future and is him from the future 290 years in advance. So that makes sense to me. I mean, if time really is only an illusion, then why not?
Well, I believe it's a construct that was created so that the creator could learn how creation works. But that's a story for another day.
It is, yeah. Wow. I would like to find out, and I find this really interesting too. You created something called your Academy of Intuitive Arts. What is that?
Sometimes I encounter people that want to know more about the practical side of, well, I would really like to be more in touch with my guidance. How can I do that? And that's pretty much what the Academy is. There are two fundamental branches to it. Well, three now with the healing. So there's intuitive development, there's mediumship development, and there's the energy healing. So either one of those tracks can take you from the basics to expanded understanding. I have students that have been with me long enough to where they're actually out working and teaching now too. So,
Yeah, I actually find that just wonderful that and we discussed this kind of earlier that we have as a birthright intuitiveness, psychic abilities, that type of thing that just lay dormant. So really, what you're doing is you're helping these people blossom and go off on their own journey of helping other people.
the classes are designed to give people confidence in the connection they already have, but maybe don't believe they do. That's it. I tell everybody, everybody's intuitive. I'm no different from anyone else. I just go to the gym and do more reps. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. Have I actually went to a spiritual workshop in Florida a couple years ago, and one lady that was there, she actually was a self-taught channeler. She had gotten a program that was available years ago when they mailed her cassette tapes, and she was able to channel because it was her intent and her desire to. And the beings out there that were she was aligned with said, "Okay, here's somebody who's willing, so let's do that." So yeah, why not expand your intuitive and psychic abilities, your mediumship abilities, through your academy, which again is it's called the.
Academy for the Intuitive Arts.
There we go. Okay. Have you ever had any experiences yourself with channeling, or is that just not your path?
Yes, I just don't do it publicly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've been trying to get me to do that kind of work for going on 35 years.
I like
Yeah.
that you said that almost sheepish.
hmm
Okay, I won't ask anymore. So
Well,
maybe,
I used to happen spontaneously, which kind of scared me a little bit in the very beginning. Um, yeah, no, I'm not going to tell that story. But let's just say that it used to really concern me, but now I understand. Again, I'm the one setting the boundaries. I set the parameters. My biggest challenge is I'm a skeptic. So I doubt that I'm actually channeling when I'm channeling because I can hear the words. I don't remember them afterwards, but I can hear them when I'm saying them. But people will say they see changes in my face or hear a difference in my voice.
Mhm.
But for me, on the inside experiencing it, it just sounds like me talking in a very relaxed way. I just feel very relaxed. That's the only way I can describe it.
I have probably had 15 or 20 channelers on this show, some of them a couple times they've been on. And it seems like, especially early in their career as a channeler, that their demeanor, their facial expressions, their voice will change. They'll even have an accent or something. But the longer they do it, I've noticed that the being coming through tends to integrate more into the person's
hmm
normal voice, which actually
Yeah.
makes me,
Yeah, I don't change much, but I do change a little. And I am a physical medium, so sometimes people have actually seen my face change.
mm.
So, and I can't control that when that happens.
Oh, I understand that. Well, we are talking to Julia Marie. She is an amazing lady, bringing lots of light and love into the world, helping people expand their natural abilities. I would like to ask you now, right now, the world is in a crazy spiral of chaos and insanity. What would you recommend to just, somebody casually watching this show? What do you think they can do right now just to bring a little more peace into their own world and love?
At the end of every healing session that the team, which actually I trance out to bring them through, um, I pour the energy of peace into the person. And so I would say to people, they could maybe ground themselves by dropping a root into the earth and then use their imagination and just visualize the color of warm golden honey with a little bit of pink in it. and just allow that to flow through and around their whole body and into the earth. And then once they feel themselves in that peaceful state, so the energy of peace looks like golden honey with pink to me. And once they achieve that state, then if they would just imagine the earth, just a picture of the globe spinning in front of them, pouring that same beautiful peace onto the planet, I believe it would help.
Yeah, I like that. That's so basically you're talking about a form of meditation with
Exactly.
nice
Yeah.
visualization. And
Yeah.
somebody who has had a crazy hectic day, has 5 kids, and maybe arguing with their spouse, and they get ready to go to bed, they can go into the bathroom for 5 minutes and
Exactly.
just do that. Yeah.
I tell in my intuitive development classes, I say, give spirit 15 minutes. And if you don't have 15, give them 5 every day. The thing is to be consistent. Spirit's going to meet you where you are. If you give them 5 minutes a day, it will change your life.
Yeah, and as A Course in Miracles states many times, all Spirit needs from you is a little willingness.
A tiny crack in the door, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. Well, as we wind up here a little bit, I have got to find out about your first full book, Signals of My Soul, a Spiritual Memoir of Awakening. And I believe it's just about to be published. It's not quite out yet.
It's going to the interior designer this week. It is slated for release in November. That's my 70th birthday present to myself, is my completed first book.
Yeah.
So
it's a memoir, right?
It's a spiritual memoir, literally, of awakening. So it tells the story of my journey from awakening all the way to today, selected experiences along the way. And so it's for anybody who's either on their path, experiencing some kind of change in their life, or someone who's been on their path for a while. There's something for everyone in there, no matter where you are. And if they want to hear a sample of what they'd get if they actually purchase the book, I've done 2 book reads on Evolving Humans. So they can go to evolvinghumanspodcast.com, and it's episode 55, The Pink Gorilla, and episode 80, There Can Be Miracles. They're 5-minute reads directly from the book.
Okay, excellent. Well, I will make sure to note this in the show notes for this show with you. And finally, you have your own podcast, Evolving Humans. And how did that come about? And you've got a lot of episodes yourself.
Spirit's been wanting me to do a podcast for almost 4 years. I never wanted to learn yet another technological thing.
Yeah.
But they would not leave it alone. So, okay, I'm a good and faithful servant. I may just not be prompt with my responses, okay? So, the pushing kept coming, the push to death, what you talked about earlier, having an impulse to do something, it was like that. Yes. And the volume just kept turning up. So I thought, well, someday I'm not going to be walking around in a body, and maybe some of what I've learned would be useful to people. So I took a class in how to do a podcast, and then I bought the equipment, and then I taught myself how to do my own producing. And, I went from 0 to whatever it is today, and I actually enjoy creating content for people. Not on YouTube yet. I know that's next because they've been pushing. But it's been out, well, the first year was July to July. But my first episode was dropped 2 years prior, but it was just the trailer. So I didn't do anything between November of 20, whatever it was, 21, I think, and July of 22. So.
Well, if you're going to go on YouTube to video, and I do all my own production here for this show, you wait till you hit that technology, because it takes a lot longer to do the video than it does the audio.
Well,
But it's
They're probably going to get audio files with moving images for a while until I find someone who can help me do the producing, because that's what I've told Spirit. I can't take on any more.
yeah.
I can't. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, at least it doesn't take me all day to do an episode anymore. I can edit one in about 2 hours now. It used to take 8, so I'm making progress. I'm really pleased with myself.
I do. Like I said, I do my own production. I
Yeah.
really enjoy it. Plus, I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was in radio for 20 years and I was a production director. So it's just kind of in my wheelhouse. So,
Lucky you.
oh, well, sometimes I wonder about that. But Julia Marie, we've been speaking to you, just absolutely beautiful stuff that you do. So grateful to have you on the show. How can people connect to you? What's your website?
The easiest place to find me is right there, www.juliamarie.us. And they can find out pretty much everything. That's where they'll learn about when the book actually is going to launch. And then and if they need counseling, consulting, or classes, or energy healing, I do all 3 of those things online. And then, of course, evolvinghumanspodcast.com. There's some really good stuff on there. Short episodes that are instructional in nature, and then other things that are conversations with other people.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Thank you for doing what you do. And Julia, thank you, my friend. Thank you for being on World Awakenings.
Carl, it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you down the road sometime.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified Law of Attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.